Kevin Feige just did an interview with Vanity Fair, I should say, where he basically kind of says that they're not going to have Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU anymore. Now, this, of course, comes on the heels of a bunch of reports. Remember that report came out that Robert Downey Jr. has already signed up and agreed to come back for Avengers. Now, I said during that thing that I did not believe the report, even though I personally 100% believe that at some point he is going to be back. I didn't really buy the idea that he's already signed on to appear in these Avengers movies, but I do believe he's going to be back. I've always thought that. Well, here's the thing, though. Kevin Feige, these comments that Kevin Feige just made, basically implying that Robert Downey Jr. would not be back in the MCU, stand kind of in contrast to comments he just made 3 weeks ago, which makes me wonder a little bit what's going on. Here's what we're talking about. The story today coming out of Vanity Fair, Kevin Feige said this: we are going to keep that moment when, Tony Stark dies at the end of Endgame. Spoiler alert. We are going to keep that moment and not touch that moment again, Feige said of Stark's final moments in the 2019 film. We all worked very hard for many years to get to that, and we would never want to magically undo it in any way. Okay, so understandably, some people, a lot of people, most people, understandably, are reading that as Kevin Feige saying Robert Downey Jr. will not be back in the MCU. I mean, he doesn't say that verbatim, but that's what seems to be the implied message. This is where it gets a little bit confusing. Just 3 weeks ago, not months, not years, in Variety, he said the following. When asked about those rumors going around that they're bringing back all the OG Avengers and stuff like that, he said this: we are doing a project with Scarlett, and I love Robert. Talking about Downey Jr. there, Myers. And I love Robert. He is part of the family. But in terms of returning, we'll have to see. In terms of returning, we'll have to see. That was 3 weeks ago. So I want to throw out a couple of options of what might be happening here. Option number one is what most people understandably are assuming, that Kevin Feige is saying definitively Robert Downey Jr. will not be back in the MCU. I don't believe that. But I mean, listen, even I have to say, that kind of sounds like what he's saying. So option number one, he's straight up saying Robert Downey Jr. isn't going to be back. Option number two, he's doing what he has done a little bit in the past, which is playing some verbal gymnastics. Let's look at the quote again. We are keeping that moment, Tony dying, and we're not going to touch that moment again. Okay, he could just be specifically talking about retconning, redoing, revisiting the death scene of whatever. He says, we all worked very hard for years to get to that, and we would never want to magically undo it in any way. Okay, so on the one hand, he could be saying Robert Downey Jr. is never come back. Although, if you read what he actually said, he could also be talking about, we're not going to undo the death of Tony Stark in Endgame. That event is never going to be changed. He says we're never going to magically undo it. But theoretically speaking, there's a lot of ways that Marvel has brought characters back that have not touched or hurt other moments. You could make an argument that Loki coming back for the Loki television series did not magically undo the events in Infinity War when Thanos killed him. It did not touch that moment, the way he calls it. I mean, theoretically, it could work into that. So option number one, he's straight up just saying Robert Downey Jr. isn't going to be back. Option number two, he's playing some verbal gymnastics and saying we're never going to touch the moment, that event that happened where Tony died. Option number three, it's just an Andrew Garfield thing and it's just all misdirection. Ray, you got a thought?
I have a didn't their town hall meeting just pass? What if Iger is really trying to not lose money? We all know Downey Jr. is expensive, right? So
Sure.
What if they went over that and he's like, no, we can't be losing money? Because the way I think about it, if they paid Robert Downey Jr. thinking that they would get it in return, the money in return from his, it's just going to end sometime anyways. You might as well lose money right now and build these new characters instead of bringing older people who are more expensive and are going to leave anyways, right? It's almost like the WWE comparison. When WWE was losing money, they were building up stars like Edge, the younger guys. And they lasted them a lifetime while WCW kept taking in all these older guys. This is like wrestling terms, if anyone wants to know.
But I mean, you have to look at it this way too.
I mean, would you spend that much money on Robert Downey? Would you think he was worth bringing back for that amount of money for?
Look, I've always thought he got paid too much.
Right.
But in Robert Downey Jr.'s defense, he worked out a deal where he got paid a percentage of the movie's box office returns. That was a risk, because if the movies didn't make money, he wasn't going to make any money. But I will say this. Marvel has never lost any money that Robert Downey Jr. was in their movie. I'm not saying it's just because Robert Downey Jr. was in it, but they have never lost money.
Good point.
And the building up of the new stars, they've done horrible at that.
Yeah, I know.
We've gone years without seeing Shang-Chi again. They've been introducing a glut of all these new characters. It hasn't been panning out, because even when they've made a good movie or a good TV show, which isn't all that often, they're not following it up to really build up these characters. So, I mean, I would think, personally, as long as Robert Downey Jr. isn't coming in the room and saying, I want $50 million to be in a movie, if he's willing to come in for his old deal, say, look, I'll tell you what, I'll take $8 million as a guarantee, and I'll take 2% of the box office. Okay, great. If the box office bombs, you've paid him $8 million. If it does great, well, then he makes money, you make money. Guys, we want to take a moment to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Give yourself the gift of insane savings this holiday season with Mint Mobile's best wireless deal of the year. Right now, when you switch to Mint Mobile and buy any 3-month plan, you'll get another 3 months for free. That's 6 months of premium wireless service for the price of 3. And Mint Mobile lets you order and activate from home while saving tons on phone plans starting at just $15 a month. Seriously, I can't think of a better gift than turning an overpriced wireless bill into just $15 a month with Mint Mobile. I've told you guys many times, since switching to Mint Mobile, I am spending less than a third on my mobile service plan with Mint than I was on the previous big carrier who was my provider. By going online only and eliminating the traditional cost of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily and effortlessly with eSIM. So again, for a limited time, buy any 3-month Mint Mobile plan and get 3 more months free by going to mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Rob, I mean, look, the bottom line is going to be here. I still believe, even though I've been very clear, no one has ever told me that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back, all right? I still believe he will. But I think there are some very valid ways of interpreting what Kevin Feige just said, including that he's never coming back. I think that's a totally valid interpretation of what he just said, even though it's not what I believe. You heard what he said. How do you interpret it?
Well, I think he has left it open for interpretation. Like, we're never going to touch that moment.
Oh, you think that was on purpose?
Yeah, I do think that was. I was very direct. I think they need to worry about bringing the entire universe back. And if they think Robert Downey Jr. will help it, I think if they did it now, it would actually come off as really pandering and that they're grasping at straws. What I would like to see, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe needs to prove once again that they have a plan, that they know what they're doing. They're leaning into 2 Avengers films, and we still don't know who's even in the Avengers. And I find that crazy that we don't know. And it's bizarre because remember, we got Avengers, the first Avengers, 4 years after Iron Man dropped. There's not an Avengers movie in the foreseeable future for another couple of years. And we're going to be how long since we saw Endgame? It's going to be quite a while.
I think when is it comes the what is currently called Kang Dynasty. I believe that comes out in 2025, right?
Yeah.
And so it's 2025 and then 2026 for Secret Wars, I think, or is it 2026, 2027?
It might be.
What's that?
20. Let me look.
It might be 26 and 27 now.
Yeah, it might. So, I mean, let's say for argument's sake right now, as Ray looks it up, if it is 26, that'll be 7 years after Endgame.
7 years. That's almost twice.
26 for Dynasty.
26 for Dynasty, 27 for Secret Wars.
Yep.
So we're going to be 7 years after the events of Endgame before we get the next Avengers film.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, John, between Star Wars and Return of the Jedi, only 6 years took place. And you needed the years to make Star Wars, of course, but still they were able to give us Empire and Jedi in that period of time. And how come the most lucrative brand of all time, which is the Avengers in terms of sales, that they would even let it go for that long?
Well, I mean, if they've been trying to, as Ray was pointing out, if they've been trying to build up a new generation, stuff like that, to build us into the Avengers, they've done a piss poor job of
Yeah, they really
like
have.
a really bad job of that. So, Rob, let me put you on the spot then, because I've laid it out there. I still believe, and I might be proved wrong, but I still believe right now that at some point Robert Downey Jr. will be back. Taking into consideration what Kevin Feige just said, if you had to guess right now, 10 years from now, are we talking about how Robert Downey Jr. did come back at some point, or that he didn't? What do you think?
Ooh, I think he is coming back, but not to play our Tony Stark.
Yeah, like it's some other version or something like that.
Yeah, so he's going to be a variant. And,
all right.
And, yeah.
Guys, what do you think? Maybe, look, totally, I have no argument with you. If you look at what Kevin Feige said and think, hey, John, he was clearly just saying Robert Downey Jr. just isn't going to be back. I have no argument with you because I think it's rational to look at that and interpret that. I still believe he will, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Let us know. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget, we have a daily podcast called the John Campea Show podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting app of choice. Go and subscribe to it today so it'll be there when you need it.